Are we good? Hello, everyone. My name is Shelley Metschi, and I will be reviewing your open enrollment options for the 2020 plan year. We'll get started and look at the agenda for the day. You can see at the top there that we're still offering 2 medical options. However, we will be making a change from MOTA this year to Providence Health Plans, and we'll take a nice overview of those plan options and some resources that Providence does provide you as members. We'll then take a look at your HRA, FSA, and HSA reimbursement programs through Health Equity. Dental option through Delta Dental. No changes there, so we'll just do a nice high-level review. Life and disability with Lincoln Financial, and finally, voluntary benefits through Unum. So very quickly on the Unum portion of this presentation, just letting everybody know that for those of you that may have current Aflac and Colonial policies, those will be terminating through payroll deductions, but you will have an option to continue those on a direct bill basis. Also, when we did that evaluation, we did look at overall comprehensiveness of the coverage and the cost, and I think for most everybody, you'll see broader coverage and hopefully lower cost. But we'll take a closer look at the policies that are being replaced here a little later. So we'll get started with the Providence options. I mentioned, excuse me, that we have 2 plans, the PPO, which is now called the Option Advantage Plus, and your HSA. So your Options Advantage plan has basically 4 columns that represent the kind of the cornerstones of the plan. So you have your copays, so those will always be for those day-to-day expenses, and we'll dive into that a little deeper here in a moment. Your coinsurance, so this is the percentage you pay after deductible, and that's typically for major medical type expenses. Your deductible, and then out of pocket. So the deductible is still $5,000 per person, $10,000 for family. So regardless of the number of members you have in your family, no more than 10,000 would need to be met before you begin to pay 20% and the plan pays 80%. On the far right, your out of pocket, you'll see $7,900 per person, $15,800 for family, and everything feeds into that out of pocket maximum. So that's what I call your all-in number. So it's your deductible goes in towards satisfying that, your coinsurance, and additionally your copayments. So what does it mean once you've hit that $7,900 or $15,800 as a family? It means that Providence will then step in and pay 100% of your expenses for the balance of the plan year. So taking a little closer look at the benefits under the plan, so I'm going to stay on the grid here to the right. You'll see at the very top that we have Express Care Virtual. I have a slide that goes into that into a little bit more detail, but it is a virtual audio video through a smartphone, tablet, or computer that you would have with your provider. And it's really a very convenient and low-cost way, as you can see, being covered in full to get care. We'll talk about the levels of care you would think about when using that benefit. Preventive care benefits are always paid for in full. You can see your office visits, regardless of provider type, will always be $25. So lab and x-ray is going to be a little different with Providence. So before you just paid 20%, deductible did not apply under the MOTA plan. With Providence, they pay 100% of the first $500. After that, your deductible would apply, and then your 20%. Then you can see your emergency room and urgent care. Again, emergency room is a little different. You do still have a $200 copayment, but that's after you satisfy deductible. I don't believe your MOTA plan had the deductible apply for emergency room services. So this is going to be an expensive cost of care for you, so be aware that there is a change on that. And then, of course, your urgent care, keeping with that $25 copayment. Moving on to your pharmacy benefits, so this is going to be very similar in structure to what you are currently experienced with MOTA. You'll see you have $10 co-payments for all of your generics, regardless if they're preferred or non-preferred, $25 for preferred brand, $50 for non-preferred, and 50% up to $200 for the specialty drugs. And I will mention that if you take a maintenance medication, so medication that you're taking on a daily basis, they do offer mail order or retail where you can pick up a 90-day supply for a 2 times copay. So essentially you're buying 2, but getting 1 for free. So any of you that might have a maintenance medication, something you're taking regularly, it's definitely worth doing either the retail 90 or the mail order for that. So you also have chiropractic and acupuncture benefits. You'll see the same $25 copayment, and then you'll notice a $1,500 calendar year benefit maximum. So I kind of parallel this to a gift card. So that essentially they give you $1,500 to spend every calendar year, and every time you see a provider, it reduces your gift card amount or your calendar year maximum benefit. So you have $1,500 to spend every calendar year, and once Providence has spent that amount, the benefit would be exhausted for the year. However, one note on this benefit, you'll notice on the right-hand side, 3rd bullet there, if your provider happens to order lab work or x-rays, that would not be a part of this benefit. Actually, those services then default over to your medical plan, so those costs of services would not reduce that $1,500 maximum. So now we're going to move to the HSA qualified health plan, and you'll notice now that we have 3 columns rather than 4. So there's the absence of copayments, and that's because the IRS requires for an HSA plan to be qualified that there be no first dollar coverages. So what does that mean? It means that every expense under the plan is subject to the deductible. So you pay 100% of that deductible. So you'll see that's $2,500 as an individual or $5,000 if you're a family. Before Providence pays 80% and you would pay 20%. So an important note for those of you that are looking at this option, at the bottom there you'll see that when 2 or more people are enrolled, so that's you or at least one other person, the family deductible applies. So one or all of your family together collectively can go in and meet that family deductible, but that entire $5,000 deductible would need to be satisfied before Providence pays 80% and you pay 20%. So it's a very important distinction. It's not a per person to a family max. It's a $5,000 deductible if you have 1 or more dependents enrolling. Same is true with the out-of-pocket. If you're an individual enrolling alone by yourself, you have a $5,000 individual out-of-pocket maximum. And again, if you have 1 or more dependents enrolled, then you have a $10,000 family out-of-pocket maximum. So looking at the same grid here on the right, you'll see how everything is subject to that deductible with 2 exceptions. You've got your Express Care Virtual and Preventive Care Services. Express Care Virtual, you'll see, is covered in full after your deductible. So I would still say that this is a great benefit to consider because it's at a reduced cost. So it's about $49 for that Express Care Virtual visit versus a primary care specialist that might charge $100+ for an office visit. So if you can access the virtual care and it's appropriate care for you, it is a way to minimize costs for you under the HSA plan. Also, it's worth noting at the bottom of the screen here, you'll see that one of the benefits to the HSA plan is that it's coupled with an HSA bank account. And there is some funding that Lifeways provides to you depending on your enrollment type. And you can see it noted there. You have $750 that they provide funding for if you're an individual and $1,500 as a family. So again, that's another benefit of this plan. Pharmacy benefits, very similar story. You'll see by and large 20% after your deductible with 2 exceptions again. You do have your ACA preventive drugs, but it's such a limited list. I don't know that I see many members being able to take advantage of it. I think the most common one I see is baby aspirin for heart condition. But I think aside from that, it's not going to provide a lot of usefulness for you. However, the safe harbor drugs might be a different story for you, and I'll show you where to access information for the safe harbor medications. But the safe harbor medications are not subject to the deductible, and these are for conditions, chronic conditions, or maintenance medications, such as high blood pressure, cholesterol reducing, those kinds of things. So it's probably worth checking out to see if you have a medication or if there's a medication on that safe harbor drug list that you can benefit from. So regardless of which medical plan you opt to enroll in, both plans include vision. And just a quick note on the HSA plan, because this is what we call a vision rider, it's not subject to your deductible ever, so you don't have to worry about that. It does include a $10 vision exam, and then prescription glasses are paid in full up to plan allowances, and I'll help you understand what those are. So if we move to the right, the fourth bullet, you'll see that lenses are paid for in full, but I will mention that that includes single lens, lined bifocal, and lined trifocal only. I think most of us are moving towards progressive lenses. Those are considered an enhanced lens, so the progressive part would not be included in that paid in full benefit. They are offered to you at a 25% discount, however, but just want you to be aware that the progressives are not part of that paid in full benefit. Also, if you're someone who enjoys the tinting or anti-scratch or anti-reflective, those are also lens enhancements that would not be paid in full, but again, offered to you at a 25% savings. I want to mention also that even though this is a Providence Health Plan vision benefit, they do use the VSP provider network. You'll see that listed, it's the top bullet there. So it is important that you access that VSP network to get these benefits. Moving down just below lenses paid in full, you'll see frame allowance of $130. So within the paid in full benefit includes your frames up to $130. So if you're selecting a retail frame that costs over that, you're just going to pay that cost difference. And then, of course, for those of you that might prefer contacts or like to rotate between prescription glasses and contacts, you do have a contact benefit equal to your frame allowance of $130 every calendar year to pay for those contact lenses. And all of the benefits I talked about, your vision exam, your lens replacement, and frames or contacts, are available to you every 12 months. So here's our Express Care virtual slide to kind of help you understand this benefit a little bit better. So I mentioned previously that it's really an audio video, so you're really Skyping, for lack of a better term. There's other devices I know, but you're having basically a Skype visit with your provider. So it's very convenient, it's very accessible, 24/7. Typically you're seen by a provider within 10 minutes. You'll notice on the second line there the common conditions that you would commonly use this benefit for. So you can see sinus, ear, eye infections, colds, flus, rashes. So anything that isn't critical or time sensitive for you to get and see in terms of somebody. So if you have obviously something that needs a casting or an x-ray, that's not possible through virtual care. But a lot of services, you have a sick child, it's difficult to get them up and out of the house, or maybe you don't want to, go into a provider's office. Whatever the reason might be, this is a great option for you for access to care. We always encourage people to download the application before you need it so that it's available and accessible to you should the time come that you do need to access the benefit. Okay, let's talk about some of the resources that Providence makes available to you as a member. What I'm going to focus on today is some of the tools that are available to you that you can access now, because I'm sure many of you would like to know if your provider is included, how do we access those pharmacy drug lists you mentioned, and a couple other things. So at the top here is the web address, providencehealthplan.com. This is where you will find your member portal. So once you get your member ID number, you will log in and register so that you have a My Providence account. Down below here are your pharmacy resources. I mentioned a couple of drug lists, and that's where you'll find them down here. You can also find participating pharmacies. Over here, you can search for provider directories. We'll show you how to do that as well. And then I'm also going to touch on this treatment cost estimator. I think that can be valuable for you as we transition. Some of you might be having something early in the year, and you're just kind of curious about what some of those costs might be if you don't already have an idea for that. That can be very helpful. So how do you find a provider? So I mentioned providencehealthplan.com. There's a clickable icon for Find a Provider, which will take you to a landing page where it will ask you two questions. The first is search by plan type, and you will want to select coverage through my employer. The next question it will ask you is the network, and your network is Signature. So regardless of what state you reside in or want to have care in, whether that's Oregon, Washington, or Idaho, the Signature network lists all the providers regardless of the zip code that you reside in. And then from there, you will tailor it based on your search preference by provider name, location, zip code, or facility. And then it will return to you a customized provider list. So here's that pharmacy resource tool. I showed you where that clickable link was, which will bring you here. And in the center of the page, you'll see that there's some links here for some printable files. But what I really wanted to show you is that there are two formularies, two lists of drugs, depending on the plan you enroll in. So Options Advantage, you would want to look for Formulary B. HSA Qualified Plan, you would want Formulary F. So when you pick your formulary, it's going to bring up this legend. So you'll be able to see, I mentioned earlier, the ACA preventive drugs. This one isn't showing us the safe harbor because this isn't the Formulary F. This is the Formulary B landing page. But you will be able to see all the lists of those drugs. So this will probably be very helpful for you as you are kind of evaluating where some of those drugs are for you, or if there's some, and where they fall under the preferred or non-preferred category. And your treatment cost estimator. So you do have access to this as a non-member before you're a member, but it will even be more helpful to you as you register on the myprovidence.com because it will pull in your actual plan information. So if you have, like this is an example of a knee arthroscopy, so it will actually pull in the facility, provider, and then also your deductible out of pocket, any kind of expense under your actual plan. It will know your plan design and then return to you what your actual out of pocket should be. So I think it can be a very helpful tool for you. Providence also has a mobile app. They will be the first to admit it's not the most sophisticated, but the one really nice benefit is that once you get your member ID number, you can load your Providence ID card. So that's the best thing probably for most of you, since we won't have ID cards likely by the January 1st. So once we get you the member numbers, you can download the app and upload your ID card. And as a Providence member, you have access to value benefits that they make available to you. And I'll touch on a couple of these, not necessarily all of them. So Life Balance at the top left-hand side is a cultural and recreational discount. And it's, if anybody is familiar with the old entertainment books, it's kind of like that, but on steroids. It's got all kinds of discounts, whether they be travel, basketball games with the Blazers, or hockey, or concerts, theater, rafting, Disneyland, all kinds. It's a great, great resource. If you are planning anything, it'd be worth a look to see if there's some discounts available to you as a member. Just below that is the health coaching, and I mention this because it's super unique for Providence. They make available to you 12 health coaching sessions per year. They are telephonic, but as you set goals for yourself and you're looking for a little support or maybe some accountability, it's a great resource for you to access. The Quit Tobacco program, I mention that because they do include free prescriptions such as Chantix to help support your goal of quitting tobacco. Active and Fit, you have that currently with MODA, and I will mention that because if you are currently participating in that program, nothing really will change. You don't have a new initiation fee or anything like that. And then finally, the ID protection and travel assistance. So the ID protection, you will need to register on the myprovidence.com in order to get enrolled in that. But that is free to you. It's provided by Assist America, as is the Travel Assist program. And the Travel Assist program is really a travel concierge service. So if you've lost your luggage or you're traveling outside of the country and you need translation services, or you get injured and need to have emergency travel, they coordinate and actually pay for those kinds of things. If you have a child and you need somebody to stay with them because something has happened to you, they will actually fly a companion to sit with them. So it's a great benefit. You'll have flyers and information. I believe there's a mobile app for that as well. And of course, anytime you have questions, you can access Providence through online, phone, or email.
Okay, Shelley, before you move on from medical benefits, I do have a couple of questions.
Okay.
My first question is, does copay count towards deductible?
Co-payments do not. So co-payments are always that flat dollar coverage. And because they're not subject to the deductible, they wouldn't apply to the deductible.
And my second question is Medicare compatibility. Are the plans that we're offering compatible with any of the Medicare options?
So the Lifeways health plan is primary to Medicare, and the options Advantage plan, the PPO plan, is definitely Medicare creditable. So the answer is yes on that one. And I will need to verify the HSA plan. I want to say it is, no, I'm sorry, the HSA plan is not. But we'll talk about the HSA plan. If you're Medicare eligible, that's really not an option for you anyway. And I'll get into that detail when we get to the HSA bank account.
Great.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Delta Dental. So I mentioned at the front end that there are no changes here, but I'll still kind of go through the elements of the plan. Dental's pretty straightforward. It's not as complicated as medical. But as a reminder, this is a dental PPO. And really what that means is if you want to gain the best coverage, then you will want to be seeing PPO providers. You can see there that they agree to discount benefit levels. So this helps you two ways. You get a higher benefit level when you see a benefit provider, but it also, because they agree to discount services, it stretches your dental dollars further, because if they would normally charge $100, but the contract they agree to, they would charge $80 for that same service, then you're paying your share based on $80 versus $100. So a couple of great reasons to see PPO providers. If you do not see a PPO provider, Delta Dental does have a premier provider network, would be at the lower cost share, and we'll see that on the next slide. But still, as long as you're seeing a premier provider, the benefit there is, again, they hold you harmless. There's no balance billing, so no surprises. What they agree to, what MODA will reimburse them, and that whatever percent of the cost share is for you is what the cost share will be. So non-PPO providers that are not premier providers, so this is where balance billing can come into play. So if they pay higher than what MODA would pay a premier provider, then there is a potential of balance billing. So you could pay more than your 20 or 40 or 50% depending. So here is the dental benefits. Everybody who enrolls in this plan has a $1,500 calendar year maximum benefit, and that's per member, so for each dependent you have enrolled. There is a plan deductible. Again, you see the per family maximum is $150. So class 1 services, these are your preventive care services. So regardless of your provider type, deductible will always be waived here. So I mentioned kind of a benefit distinction by saying PPO or non-PPO, and you can see that here on the slide. So you're going to have a higher benefit level by seeing those PPO providers. Class 2 are what we call basic services. So these are your fillings, oral surgery, tooth extractions, your endodontics and periodontics, that's your root canals and gum disease treatments. And then of course, class 3 are major services, which are your crowns, bridges, dentures, and of course, implants. No waiting periods ever for these services, regardless of when you enroll or your dependents enroll. So that's a great benefit. And your plan includes orthodontia coverage. So unique here is that it is both adult and child. We don't typically see that a lot. So this is a great benefit for everybody who participates in the plan. So this is a different maximum of $1,500. So this is specific to just orthodontia coverage. It is a lifetime maximum, not a per year maximum. So be aware of that. And essentially you're going to cost share with MODA at 50%. And I think you can just assume this is going to be a $1,500 benefit, because if anybody has had braces in their recent lives, they're anywhere from $6,000 to $7,000. So again, I think you can just look at this and know you're going to get a $1,500 benefit for that. And because this is a dental PPO, it'll be important for you to know how to find a provider. So you would go to the MODA or Delta Dental website and find a provider there. And this is just kind of explaining the different ways to search and to find providers. But the most important message here is that you're going to find those on the MODA or the Delta Dental website. Okay, so now we're going to take a review of all of the reimbursement accounts available to you through Lifeways. And these accounts, the availability of them will be dependent on largely by what health plan you enroll in. So we'll start with the flexible spending account. And I will just start before I kind of get into the slides here. On the FSA account, as long as you're not on the HSA plan, this option is available to you, even if you're not enrolled in a medical plan. So this is a benefit that you're eligible for, even if you don't participate in the medical plan. So what is a flexible spending account? What is an FSA? So an FSA is a plan where you are payroll deducting money pre-tax to reimburse yourself for eligible expenses with tax-free money. And the beauty of that is that it's probably one of the only ways to get tax-free money to pay for eligible medical expenses. The only other way to get that tax benefit is if you itemize on your tax statement, and then at that it would have to be at least 10% or higher than your adjusted gross income. So it's a pretty tough number to beat. So anytime you're getting a tax advantage, I think it's a great consideration. It also is conveniently payroll deducted. So you basically make a decision on how much you want for the plan year, and then that's divided by your payroll periods. And then that money is available to you with a debit card. So giving, again, real-time access to your money, eliminating the delay of reimbursement. So you're at the provider's office, you pay your co-payments, you pick up your prescriptions, you pay for your dental services, and it just eliminates that delay of having to wait 7-10 days to have that money be returned to you. So there are two accounts under the flexible spending and care account: healthcare and dependent care. And we'll take a look at both of those. So the healthcare FSA, quick note, again, not eligible if you're on the HSA plan, can be used to pay for qualified medical expenses. And I would just encourage you to consider not only expenses for yourself, but also your dependents, even if they're not participating on a Lifeways health plan. because all of their eligible expenses, you can reimburse those through your FSA account. So also the entire amount is available. I don't think I mentioned this yet. So regardless of the amount you set aside for the year, that entire account balance is pre-funded into your FSA on day one. So on January 1, your debit card is loaded, your FSA account is loaded with that annual amount that you've selected. As you consider what that annual amount would be, I've listed some healthcare expenses for you to consider in that evaluation. You can see deductible, co-insurance, co-payments, dental, orthodontia. This is a great benefit for orthodontia, by the way, especially when you have a $1,500 or you suppose you have a deposit or some large sum amount that's required at the time of placement. The FSA can be quite beneficial. But anyway, I'll let you take a look at that list, but do know that expenses for both you and your dependents are eligible. So the limit for the 2020 year is $2,750. This plan does include a grace period, and really what that means is that you have an additional 2.5 months or up until March 15th to not only incur expenses, but to be reimbursed for those as well. So normally without a grace period, you would have to spend down your account by December 31st. With the grace period, you have until March 15th to incur expenses. Be aware, though, that even though you have through March 15th to incur those expenses to spend down that account, you must have claims submitted by March 31st for them to be eligible for reimbursement. Dependent care FSA. So if you have a dependent child to age 13, or you're coordinating care for a disabled spouse or elder parent, this account can be used for that as well. You can see the custodial care that qualifies is before and after daycare, school care. Day camps does include summer camps. The IRS, however, kind of draws the line at overnight camps, so be aware of that. And you can see the IRS maximum listed there at the bottom. So the FSA does require that you proactively sign up and elect a new amount every calendar year. So it doesn't carry, your enrollment decision doesn't carry from year to year. So each year you'd have to make a fresh election. And then again, of course, depending on what that election amount is, Lifeways will then be taking that out through payroll deduction. And then you can then have access to those funds using your debit card, or you can submit reimbursements as well. But I will caution everybody, regardless of how you're accessing your funds, to always save your receipts. The IRS does require that if a substantiation cannot be made, that documentation is required. So what does substantiation mean? So substantiation basically means if they can't absolutely determine that whatever expenses you had are eligible, and I love to use dental as an example, because it makes sense that if the charges occurred at a provider's office, that it would be for an eligible expense. However, the dentist does do some services that don't qualify, such as teeth whitening. So Health Equities doesn't know if that charge is for teeth whitening or teeth cleaning, for example. So if they reach out to you with a request for substantiation, it is very important that you respond to them. So you're going to get a notice from them by email or mail. And if you don't respond to them, just be aware that what happens at the end of the year, then those charges will be imputed to you as income, plus an additional 6% in tax, excise tax. So super important that you respond to those documentation requests. So on the last slide in red, it mentions an EOB or itemized receipt, and I will be the first to tell you that an EOB is the very best documentation to provide, because it literally has every point of item it needs to use for substantiation. If you use an itemized receipt, just make sure that these 5 bullets at the top there are included in that documentation, otherwise it won't be accepted. So name of provider, the name of the patient, the description of the service, the dates, and cost. So you have several ways to submit those documentation. You can do that through your mobile phone, you can email them, and you can also upload them onto the website. Moving on to the HRA health reimbursement arrangement. So this plan, you're automatically enrolled in. If you enroll in the Options Advantage A, $5,000 deductible plan. So no action is needed on your part. This will be a part of that plan and you'll be enrolled in this HRA automatically. So essentially the way this works is Lifeways makes available for your use and reimbursement $4,000 as an individual, $8,000 per family. So they fund your HRA and then those HRA dollars are used to reimburse you should you have eligible expenses. So what are eligible expenses? So this HRA is deductible only. I mentioned both your employees and dependents are eligible. The HRA does have a deductible. So basically this means of the $5,000 health plan deductible, you pay the first $1,000 as an individual. As a family, you pay the first $2,000 of the $10,000 deductible, and Lifeways reimburses the balance. So hopefully that makes sense. So essentially what an HRA does is it really turns your $5,000 deductible plan into a $1,000 deductible plan because you pay the first $1,000, Lifeways pays the next $4,000. As a family, you have a $10,000 total deductible, you pay the first $2,000, Lifeways will pay the next $8,000. So we have a claims integration process, and this process will follow just exactly how you see it on the screen. The provider will bill and file the claim with Providence. Providence will share that claim information with Health Equity. So you then have options on how you want to complete that claims process. The first option is to auto pay the provider. So this is exactly what it means. When Health Equity receives the claim information from Providence, so that's number 3 on your graph here, then they will process that. You'll receive a bill, but Health Equity will actually pay directly to the provider any of that deductible reimbursement that you qualify for. So there's really a hands-free experience here in terms of your health HRA reimbursements. The other option is for you to be reimbursed directly. And I'm going to kind of bring your attention up here. So if you choose to be reimbursed directly, it is at no cost to have those EFT reimbursements direct to your bank account. If you choose to have a paper check, just be aware they will charge $2 for that paper check. What changes here is Health Equity still receives the claim. You'll get the bill. Health Equity will submit payment to you, and then you're responsible for paying the provider. The final option is really self-directed, where you kind of step out of any automated process and manually request reimbursement. So Health Equity will still have the claims data from Providence, so you won't need to submit anything to Health Equity, but you will have to manually request the reimbursement. So there's no automation here. So you will have 3 options. When you get your member guide and welcome kit, it will help you know what steps you need to take and how to make those decisions online and get set up for the self-directed or the auto pay. Finally, we'll talk about the HSA plan. So I think a lot of people stay away from HSA plans because they're confusing and they're different and there's just uncertainty around them. So I thought I would start by having you ask yourself a couple questions to know if an HSA is right for you. So the first question is, are you a relatively healthy person? In other words, you don't really have any chronic or ongoing high healthcare costs. Or maybe you have some healthcare costs, but they're at the low to no cost end. So for example, you're going in for some preventive screenings. Maybe you've got some safe harbor drugs, or maybe what you have access to are the low-cost medications that the Fred Meyers and the Walgreens offer at $4 or $2, but your healthcare costs are relatively low. And then finally, would your savings in your HSA account grow faster than your need to pull them out? And we'll take a look at what those savings might be for you. And then a lot of questions around what happens to the HSA money in terms of from year to year if I leave Lifeways. So the most important feature about the HSA account is that the funds roll from year to year. There's never a use it or lose it. You're never forfeiting the funds. Once those funds are in your individually owned account, they are yours and they stay there until you use them. Even if you leave Lifeways and change jobs or insurance plans. Let's say you're on the HSA now and you want to move to the PPO plan. What happens to the money then? The money is always there for you to use. What changes is you can no longer contribute into the HSA bank account. So that gets taken away, but you still have the money there to use as you need them. Again, always tax-free money, so it's kind of the triple benefit of tax-free money going in, tax-free money coming out, and tax-free interest is earned. So who is eligible for an HSA? Well, you have to be covered by an HSA qualified health plan. So if you enroll in the Providence $2,500 HSA, you've checked that box. Super important that you or any eligible dependent on the plan not be covered by any other health care. This includes Medicare. So now we're talking about the HSA bank account. Anybody can enroll in a health plan. There's no restrictions there, but anytime we're offering tax-free money, the IRS gets involved. So all the restrictions that we're talking about right now are exclusive to the health savings bank account. So if you are on Medicare, Medicare eligible, you're not even enrolled in Medicare B, just the fact that you're eligible for Part A, which is free, precludes you from participating in an HSA bank account because the IRS considers that other health care. The other very important item is that you not have any FSA money. So perhaps you're participating in a flexible spending account now. And remember, I mentioned that you have that grace period, which allows you to use your FSA money through March 15th. If you are considering the HSA plan, it is very important that you spend down any flexible account money by December 31st. Any amount left over through that March 15th, during that period, you cannot contribute and you cannot receive contributions for your health savings account. And that doesn't mean on April 1st that you can do some catch-up contributions. It's not the way that works. They'll actually get prorated. So it'll be very important that you spend down your FSA account to zero by December 31st. Down below are your HSA contribution limits. You can see on the left-hand side. As an individual, the IRS allows you to set aside $3,550 tax-free, and as a family, $7,100. On the right-hand side of your screen is the mention of HSA contributions from Lifeways. So let's take the HSA contribution limit for 2020 as that savings level, and let's just say you backfill the difference between what HSA contribution Lifeways provides and what you're eligible to contribute. So essentially you're funding at the $3,550 level or $7,100 level. So going back to the question is, would the savings grow faster than your need to pull them out? So the question then becomes, would you have a need to spend more than $3,550 or $7,100 as a family? Or would you have more savings at the end of the year? So if you have savings at the end of the year, then I would suggest that this could be a good option for you. And again, what the contribution that Lifeways gives you, the $750 or $1,500, that's free cash money to you that they give you to spend. So it's a great value, it's a great benefit. And then a quick mention there at the bottom that HSAs do allow you to change your contributions throughout the year. So if you start with one election amount at the beginning of the year and something changes and you want to increase that or decrease that, you're able to do so, you're not locked in. All of the accounts I just talked about, the FSA, the HRA, the HSA, all of them have tools and resources as a member online. So you'll get member packets, or if you're already participating in the FSA or HSA, you know how to access that information. None of that is changing for you. But just know that you do have online access, you have a mobile app, and of course Health Equity is always available to you by phone. Okay. So we'll talk about Lincoln Financial, and these are your life and disability benefits. Many of these benefits are paid for by Lifeways, so we'll just make sure you're aware of those because they really are valuable to you. So the first is your employer paid life insurance. So you have a benefit of 1 times your annual earnings up to $100,000. If you were to die of an accidental cause, you would receive, or your beneficiary would receive, 2 times your annual earnings up to $200,000. This plan also includes dependent coverage as well. You can see on the last 2 lines there that Lifeways does pay and provide for a $2,000 benefit for you and your children. And just a note at the bottom, we see this happen quite frequently where a lot of employees will name a beneficiary as, a minor as a beneficiary. And in Oregon and Washington, I'm not sure about Idaho, I'll have to find that out for you, but Lincoln cannot pay life proceeds out to a minor. So it gets held up, and I'm not sure exactly if it goes to the estate, but it cannot be paid out to the minor until they become of age. So if any of you would like to designate a minor as a beneficiary, I would just encourage you to consider a trust or a guardian to receive those life proceeds, because again, the minor child would not be able to receive those funds until they turned 18. You also have the option of optional voluntary life insurance. So this is at your own expense through a payroll deduction. If you are currently participating and you currently have amounts that you've elected, nothing changes there, it carries on. So just know that no action is needed from you on that point. You can see the coverage amounts that you're eligible for. I won't go through those, but you can see those listed there. If you are a newly hired or first-time eligible employee, there is a guarantee issue of $130,000 for yourself, $30,000 for a spouse. And what does guarantee issue mean? Well, it essentially means that you can ask for up to those limits with no questions asked. So you can have just survived a heart attack or cancer, and they don't care. You're going to receive up to those guarantee issue amounts, no questions asked. If you say no today, you'll always have an option at every annual open enrollment to participate in the life insurance, but just know that a guarantee issue is taken off the table and all amounts would be subject to health underwriting questions. If you're currently participating in the optional life insurance and you want to increase your amounts, you can do so at either a $10,000 or $20,000 increment, and you can do that year over year with no health questions asked. So it's a great opportunity to grow that benefit every year at $10,000 or $20,000 and never have to answer health questions. So just know that's available to you. Short-term disability. So I like to call this paycheck insurance. We do a great job of insuring our homes, our cars, our lives, our health. But the one thing we don't insure is our ability to earn a living. so which pays for everything else. The fact that you have this benefit is fantastic because this really continues your income should you be unable to work due to an accident or illness for up to 9 weeks. So what this provides to you is 60% of your earnings, up to $650 per week. There is a waiting period, so 30 days, you have to be unable to work either fully or partially. And on day 31, your benefits kick in and will pay for the next 9 weeks. So again, I mentioned you don't have to be totally unable to work. There is a partial cash benefit for you. So even as long as you have a loss of earnings of 20%, you are eligible for a benefit. So you have the option, again, this is through a payroll deduction, you would pay the full cost of this coverage. So this is long-term disability. So this coverage picks up where short-term disability leaves off. And this allows you to ensure your ability to earn a living for a longer period of time. You'll notice here that the mode of payment moves from weekly to monthly. That's the third bullet. 60% of monthly salary up to $6,000 per month. The 90-day waiting period matches up to the 30-day waiting period plus the 9 weeks. That gets you to 12 weeks or 3 months. So this picks up where that leaves off and will continue to pay you for up to 5 years or age 70, whichever comes first. So I will tell you that the average length of disability is around 24 months. So you can see how this can provide really optimal coverage for you should you be unable to work for an extended period of time. And because you pay the full cost of this, benefits are paid out to you tax-free. So if you've never considered this benefit, I would strongly encourage you to maybe take a look at the cost and see if it's something that has value to you. Because I think, we hope you never have to use it, but at the end of the day, it can really be a lifeline. Also available through Lincoln is an EAP program. So we're moving away from Reliant Behavioral Health that was provided through the other program that is terminating December 31st. But you still have this EAP program through Lincoln. You can see that you have 5 face-to-face visits per issue. This is available to you and all members of your family. So it does have 24/7 crisis support should you ever need that. But again, up to 5 face-to-face visits per issue. So they also offer travel assistance. And I talked about Assist America earlier when we were reviewing the Providence resources. And this really is identical to what Providence is providing you. So you actually have a second option, if you will, if you need to or want to carry additional travel assistance concierge services. So again, it's emergency travel help should you leave home without a prescription or need translation services, emergency transport. Again, there's the mention of if your child is left unattended, they provide care for that. So another resource for you for some travel assistance. And finally is Life Keys. So Life Keys, what I think the best benefit is right here, your estate guidance. Oh, that's misspelled. Love it when that happens. So this is basically free online will preparation services for basic wills. If you have a more complex estate, probably not the right fit for you, but I think for most people, this is a great service. If you don't have a will, this is a great free resource for you. Again, identity theft resources, we've already talked about that with Providence Health Plan, however. And then of course, on Lincoln's website, there's lots of resources that can help you with videos, newsletters, and such, depending on kind of what the topic of interest that you have. Finally, we'll come to our voluntary benefits program. So I mentioned earlier that we are replacing both Colonial and AFLAC, and that is true for the accident policy, critical illness, and cancer. So we'll start with the accident insurance. On the right here, you'll see the schedule of benefits. I know that's hard to read. but it's just really intended to kind of give you an idea of the types of reimbursements that are available under the policy, not to be all exhaustive. But what's great about this plan is the third bullet here, is it really helps to defray the costs of out-of-pocket expenses with your copays and deductibles, maybe even especially on the HSA plan. Or if you have an active child, I raise 2 boys, you know, these types of policies come in very handy for those types of things. It also goes with you if you were to leave. Lifeways is portable, and it continues on a self-direct bill basis at the same cost as you're paying as an employee. And also the $50 wellness benefit. So Unum makes this process super easy. All you've got to do is give them a call. They don't require any paperwork. You just give them a call and say, hey, I had my preventive screening, and they will mail you a $50 check. And then the final coverage is your critical illness and cancer. So this is a combined coverage. So previously, these were offered as separate policies. So you can see on the right-hand side there, the different types of coverages and conditions. You can see that's a pretty good list there of different conditions that this plan covers. What this plan does is pays a lump sum benefit on the date of diagnosis. So it's not going to sparse out payments for different types of services you might have, like chemo, or how frequently you see a doctor, or if and when you're hospitalized. It's going to give you the full face value that you've elected on the date of diagnosis, so that you have the money to spend and use as needed. The guarantee issue, which means all amounts are guarantee issue. There's never any health questions. As an employee, you can request 10, 15, or 20,000. Your spouse is eligible for 5, 75, or 10,000. You do need to enroll in order to enroll a spouse. You'll note here, though, that children are automatically covered at 50% of your face value. So children, there's no additional premium to add coverage for children. They're automatically included when you enroll as an employee. And this plan also has a wellness benefit. Excuse me. Same deal, $50 a year. Just give Unum a call and they'll send you a check. So that is the end of my presentation. Please see Amber or Christina if you have any questions.